Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we are going to discuss the San Francisco 49ers' two first-round selections, defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw and wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. So let's get down and dirty. Most mocks and fans alike had the 49ers selecting one of the big three wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, or Henry Ruggs III. Basically, someone who can take the load off of wide receiver Deebo Samuel at the wide receiver position while replacing Emmanuel Sanders in that short to intermediate game. As we know, the Raiders took Henry Ruggs III as they had a need for speed, just like they did back in 2009 when they reached for Darius Heyward-Bey and the Niners lucked out with Michael Crabtree. So no surprise there. Leaving my number 1 and number 2 rated wide receiver on the board at the 49ers pick at 13. In addition, we come to find out that left tackle Joe Staley retired due to health reasons. A decision I'm sure the 49ers knew heading into the draft, and something that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan both alluded to and acknowledged in their post-draft presser. So at number 13, what did they decide to do? They opt to pass on both wide receivers and offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs, who was sitting there, trading down one spot to the new look Bucks in exchange for an additional 4th round draft pick. The rest was history, and the Bucks took Wirfs at number 13. The 49ers, sitting at 14 now, select defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw. I like the player, hate the reach. If you watched my first podcast video, making sense of the DeForest Buckner trade, you would know that I envisioned this likely scenario, one where defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw would be sitting there at 13 and they would grab him to ease the blow of losing their all-pro talented defensive tackle. No offense to Kinlaw, but he's nowhere near the talent level of Buckner now or when he came out of college. Plain and simple. What the 49ers got was a proverbial boom or bust prospect. Now GM John Lynch can call him one of the foundational players, but let's be honest about that. If Buckner was still on the team, would he have taken Javon Kinlaw, a foundational player, or would they have addressed other needs who are also considered foundational players, like CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, or Tristan Wirfs? This was a reach no matter how you cut it, bro. But like I said, I like the player, I hate the reach. They should have went BPA because when you reach for need, you diminish the value of the pick. But now let's talk about the why. Why do I think Kinlaw's a reach? Aside from a strong Senior Bowl, he hasn't really done much in South Carolina. The team needs a 3-tech defensive tackle who can not only shoot the gaps, but command double teams as an interior rusher. If you watch the film doesn't lie. Kinlaw often plays with a high pad level, which leads to inconsistency in his play. 10.5 sacks in 2 years will prove that. DeForest Buckner had 10.5 sacks in his last year at Oregon. So the proof is in the pudding. Not to mention, Kinlaw has been injury prone. In 2018, he had hip surgery, and he's now dealing with tendonitis in his knee. Could this be another Reuben Foster 2.0 in terms of the medical? Time will tell. However, Kinlaw does bring a powerful punch with Pro Bowl potential. For starters, 6'5", 324 pounds with almost a near 35-inch arm length. That kind of size doesn't grow on trees. The get-off from his initial snap is promising. He displays violent, heavy hands at the point of attack. He shows a nasty demeanor with his bull rush, has nimble feet with strong lateral agility to make plays sideline to sideline, and he has the rare physique to play in a 4-3 traditional front or a 3-4 base. What I mean by that is, right now, he's lined up as a 4-3 defensive tackle, but should Saleh not be there and they convert to a 34 odd man front, he can play the defensive end position as the team's 4 technique or even the 6 technique or the 5 technique. He can play line up over the tight end side if he needed to. He's that strong. He can hold the point of attack, and you can't coach that type of strength and that type of power at the point of attack. He does that very, very well. Simply put, the ceiling is high, and if Kinlaw puts it all together, it will be considered a safe pick. However, if he doesn't, it'll be another wasted first-round pick on a defensive lineman as the team reached for need. Then there's Brandon Aiyuk. Again, like the player, hate the reach. After getting a 4th-round pick from the Kinlaw deal, the 49ers flipped that pick, moving up from 31 to 25 with the Minnesota Vikings. The 49ers then selected wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk out of Arizona State. Another reach in my opinion, and here's why. The 49ers clearly hit the panic button once all the Tier 1 wide receivers were off the board. If you looked at my podcast earlier in the best trade down scenario, you would know that Justin Jefferson was the trade down target. And once he went off the board to the Minnesota Vikings, the 49ers went ahead and made the move to trade up for Brandon Aiyuk, which goes back to my thought process on selecting the best player available at 13, let alone 14 with wide receiver Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb. Instead of doing that, by trading up, they get a tier number 2 wide receiver with only 1 year body of work. Sure, Shanahan can say he was the number 1 player on their board, and Lynch can say he's one of their 6 foundational players, and said number 6 because he wanted to keep everyone guessing. But for what? Who are you fooling? You pick at number 13. Whether you said 4, 6, or 25 foundational players, it doesn't really make a difference because we don't even know which players you're talking about. So why lie about the number of foundational players when you pick 13th overall? Just saying. But getting back to trading for Aiyuk, I think it was a dumb move. If it was your number 1 rated wide receiver on your board, that's great. I don't dispute that. But the need to trade up for him was wrong. And here's why. The Seahawks weren't going to draft a wide receiver at number 27. They have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and speed demon Philip Dorsett, who they just recently signed as an unrestricted free agent. Plus, 4 out of their last 8 first-round picks have came out of the Big 12, so they're out of the running. They're not going to pick Aiyuk. And who did they select? Big 12 linebacker Jordan Brooks from Texas Tech. At number 28, the Ravens always go best player available. So what do? They're not going to select Aiyuk. Aiyuk would be a reach at their selection. Since 2000, they only drafted 4 wide receivers in the first round. So what do? Do what I said. They drafted the best player available, and that was inside linebacker Patrick Queen from LSU. At number 29, the Titans are in the same position as the Seattle Seahawks. They have A.J. Brown, who they got last year in the second round. They have, of course, Adam Humphries. And they also have Corey Davis, who they drafted, I believe, number 5 overall. So when you put that group together, they're out of the running for a wide receiver. And who did they select? Offensive tackle Isaiah Wilson. Now let's talk about the Dolphins at number 30. They have a plethora of needs across the board, so they can go in any which direction they want. But wide receiver is not one of them. Here's some facts. Since GM Chris Greer became the Dolphins GM back in 2016, he has never selected a Pac-12 wide receiver higher than the 4th round, or a wide receiver higher than the 3rd. But if he was leaning toward wide receiver, there's still other good ones on the board, like Denzel Mims, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman. So what do? Who did they draft? The SEC cornerback. For all those reasons, makes trading up for Brandon Aiyuk kind of a head scratcher at best. And again, I'm not arguing where you valued him on their board, Kyle Shanahan, but rather the rationalization for trading up based on other teams' tendencies while giving up a 4th round pick in return. But what's done is done. Let's talk about what the 49ers are getting in this Pac-12 product. He's explosive between the 20s. He has a lateral agility to line up in the slot, speed to separate outside the numbers, toughness to go across the middle, huge catch radius. That guy has a long wingspan. And he's a gadget player in terms of jet sweeps, end arounds, bubble screens, a la wide receiver Deebo Samuel. So he does fit what Kyle Shanahan likes to do in that short to intermediate game. And most importantly, he adds value in the return game. In Shanahan's post-draft presser, he compared Aiyuk to Dante Pettis because he can line up anywhere. So whether it's the X, whether it's a Z, or whether it's the F, he can line up across the board in Shanahan's offense. And I believe that to be true. But most importantly, he adds value in the return game. If you notice, Dante Pettis has been in the doghouse for quite a while, and with Brandon Aiyuk there, if he doesn't pan out wide receiver early in his career, well, at least you get a return guy, because that guy can definitely cut back on a dime. In fact, he has running back vision for the wide receiver position, kind of like Deebo Samuel, but there are drawbacks to his game. And here they are. He takes false steps off the line of scrimmage, struggles for press coverage, route running could be more polished, inconsistent hands when challenging for 50-50 balls, and his pad levels rise when he's running those vertical routes. And when you do that, you're not really selling the route because you're telling the DB, hey, look, it's going to be a 15 to 20 yard route, and I'm not going to be working on those double moves if I just know you're going to come off your stem and then go straight back up. So that's something he needs to work on. But again, I like the pick. I don't like the reach. Just like Kinlaw, Aiyuk has the talent to thrive under Shanahan's offense. I'm not disputing that. Surely he will get schemed up, and one of the best, Kyle Shanahan, will find a way to make it work. But there are concerns to his game, especially coming off the line of scrimmage first press. And if he can't do that, it spells disaster, especially in Shanahan's offense where timing is everything. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my insider analysis and insights. Be sure to hit the subscribe button below and spread the word to all your family and friends. Thank you for tuning in again. Take care. Have a good night. Peace.